I'm going to show you how I make a deer feeder, and I do some things a little bit different than what most guys do when they make these PVC deer feeders. I've got this as a utility marker off of a utility right-of-way. I work for a company that supplies these, and occasionally we'll get one that's damaged, and so I'll get them and I'll make deer feeders out of them. And typically this is 6 feet long, but I've cut it to 4 foot, and that's a 3-inch diameter. So when it's all put together, it'll hold just about 2 gallons of corn. And you get the Y to slip this down inside of, and this is a 3-inch. Now a lot of guys will take and put an extra piece of piping on the end and then put a cap on it down towards the bottom and drill holes for the water to leak out when it rains in it. But that gives you an extra 3 or 4 inches that you've got to have corn in, that a deer can't get down and get to that. And for the price of that cap, you can buy one of these. This is actually a PVC drain. Corn won't fall through it, as you can see, but the water will. And instead of putting that extra piece on with the cap you got to drill holes in, for the price of that cap you can buy one of these, and we're just going to stick it up in the bottom. Now if you put it in on this direction, you can see you're going to have a little bit of an edge there on the inside that'll catch water, and it'll actually start to mildew. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in right side up, just like you would if you were putting it in a floor. We're going to put it in right side up and hammer it in place. But before we do that, we're going to ease that edge just a little bit, take that sharp edge off, and then we'll just drive it into the bottom of this into place. No glue needed at all. That is not going to come out of there. Raccoons, anything, not going to pull that out. And see, it's flush against the bottom, so we don't have a gap that'll catch water. That's not going anywhere. And something else that I like to do in my feeders, this is where the deer is going to be putting their nose in to get the corn out, or the grain, or whatever you have in it. And you've got this lower side here that's just going to have corn that just lays there they can't get to. So what I do is I'll take a Dr. Pepper bottle and I'll shorten it up a little bit, and I'll just drop it in there, and then it's going to push the feed towards the front. As it falls down, it'll push it towards this direction. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and cut that up. Okay, I've got my Dr. Pepper bottle, and I've shortened it up a little bit, and what I do is I just drop it inside of there, and as you can see, it's coming up, and it basically raises the floor of the inside, and as the corn falls down, it pushes that corn this way. So it makes more of the corn lay in here, and I don't have a lot of corn laying down here that the deer actually can't get to, and it fits in there loose enough that the water can get around it and drain out. Again, I just take a Dr. Pepper soda bottle, cut the top off of it, and drop it down in there. And you can see that acts as a sort of a wall on the inside that pushes that corn to the front of this Y. The next thing that I'm going to do that's a little bit different than what most guys do is I'm not going to paint this. I did get some sandpaper on my orbital sander, and I sanded it to make it nice and rough so it's not slick anymore. And when you get that slickness off of it, it also stops the static electricity on it. But I'm going to, once I've got this roughed up nice like this, instead of painting it, for the cost of what it would cost me for 3 cans of 3 different colors of spray paint, I can get a couple of these rolls of camo tape. And I'm going to put the camo tape on this, and it holds real well. I've used this several times. I've got a couple of them that's been on them for a year, and the tape's still on there. And in that period of time, most of the time, the paint will fade off just from the sun. But I'm going to take this camo tape, and I'm going to wrap this, and I'm going to wrap this Y as well. And when you do that, you want to start from the bottom and work your way up, just like shingles on a roof. You want that lap of the tape to be in a down pattern, so that as the water drains down it, it's draining over the top of that tape seam and not draining into the tape seam. So I'm going to tape this up, and I'll turn it back on, the camera back on, when I get it done, and show you how it looks. Okay, so that's what it looks like after I get it taped up. It took me about 8 minutes to do this 4-foot section. Less than a roll of tape. The tape cost about $2.95 a roll, and it's regular duct tape brand, but this is the camo that they have. And they've got probably 100 different kinds you can put on it, but this is the camo. It's a duct tape brand tape, and I don't have to worry about the smell of the aerosol paint. I don't have to worry about the drift from the paint, any of those things, and this will stay just as long as that paint will, and it's a lot quicker, a lot easier, looks just as good. Now I've left the bottom here because I'm going to slip the Y on, and then I'll tape the Y as well. And then up on the top, I've left the piece where my cap that came with this particular pipe, the cap's going to slip on, and I'll also tape up the cap as well. So I'm going to go ahead and slip the Y onto this now camouflage post, and I'll tape that up too. That's how I make a gravity-fed deer feeder. 48 inches long, 3 inches in diameter, gives you right at 2 gallons of corn. And that's a good amount for me because I keep my feeders fairly close to the house, and I visit them every couple of days to change the card out on my game cameras, and so that's not an inconvenient amount for me. 2 gallons is a good amount for me. But I want you to try this camo tape next time you make one instead of spray painting. You don't have to breathe in the fumes of the spray paint. Cost is about the same, and it works out real well. And this tape holds up really good. I put some of that tape, the same camo tape, on my crossbow about 1.5 years ago, and it's still holding up good. All this on the front is black and shines through like two big black eyes looking at you, those 2 bolts. And so I put camo tape on those. I put camo tape here on the stirrup. This is an Axiom Excalibur model, and the rail is composite on it, and this whole area here is black. So I put camo on that and covers it up really well. And then I put some on the scope mount and some different spots on the scope as well. Now this tape has been on there about 1.5 years, still holding tight, hasn't even tried to come loose yet. So I want you to give that a try. Don't be afraid to use that tape, it works out real well. And one more tip for you, if you use these gravity fed feeders, sometimes it's hard to tell when you're out of corn and whether or not you need to refill it. The tip that I always use, I'll fill it up almost to the top. When I get about 2 inches from the top, I'll stop putting corn in it, and I'll put 3 or 4 pieces of bubble gum up there. And when I see the deer walking around blowing bubbles out their butt, then I know they've eaten all the corn, and it's time for me to go back and refill it. That's just a little tip for you that a lot of guys don't know. Try some of that tape next time you build one of these, and I hope you have good luck with it.